talking just some random stuff, aren't we? You're
Yeah,
working on the, you're working on some books, aren't you?
I'm working on all sorts of stuff. And then the cool thing is when I'm working on these things, it's you do so much research on it and you can't sleep and you stay up and you get all excited. And then you discover some really cool stuff and then you want to talk about it, but you're supposed to keep it all secret. um, but yeah, so I'm doing some like lots of cool product development. But then, of course, I'm working on some books because I really want to get that information out there. And it all makes sense. It all links in because for the products to work, you've got to explain why you do what you do and everything like that. But the gut stuff is so fascinating because I don't know, like how much you follow this series. The gut stuff is phenomenal because we did that decade of that microbiome. Sorry, we did a decade of the genome research program. You know, when
Yeah.
they went and they spent, I think it was actually, it took them 13 years and I think it was $7 billion they invested to be able to sequence the human genome, just so they could actually count how many genes we had, you know, get it all in and work out the sequence of potential genetic potential for humans. And then, you know, with the plan that they're going to discover all these genes and cure diseases or make superhumans by manipulation of genes.
Yeah.
And then what happened? It was the funniest thing because they called it the genome conundrum or something. I think it was because what they worked out is that when they sequenced human genes, they worked out we had 23,000 genes. But then when they compared it to the plants they'd already practiced on, they realized rice has 45,000 genes. And so they all of a sudden they did this big human genome thing, expecting to see all these miraculous genes in humans, and we were like, had half the genetic potential to rice. So then they were just like, and then they were like freaking out because they didn't know what to do with all that information. Because I mean, we got opposable thumbs and we talk and we do all these. We do a lot more. You know, we can walk and stuff that rice can't do. You know, like, and it was like all these amazing things. And how can, and we're like really similar to like a carrot or something. You know, like with our genetic potential. So they just it totally blew their mind. So after the 13 years and $7 billion, they did not discover one relevant cure or one relevant application for studying the human genome, possibly because they spent most of their time researching ways of actually scanning and sampling genes cheaper and faster so they could do it to more people.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so now, you know, I said it took 13 years and I think it was 7 billion. I should have checked that number, but
Yeah.
13 years to sequence a human genome. Now they can do it for $100 in less than an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, so just need a little bit of your sample of something, throw it under their machine, and they tell you your whole genetic profile within an hour. Costs them less than $100.
Yeah.
And so that's where the research went into, rather than using those genes for cures, which was kind of bad at the time, but also worked out really good because what happened next is they started using the genome testing, to sequence bugs and bacteria and viruses. And that's when they discovered the genetic complexity of our like microbiome. So, you know, I said we had like 23,000 genes.
Yeah.
They worked out that because we have like 500 to 1,000 different species of microbes living inside us, that we actually have 3.3 million genes that we can tap into, that add to our 23,000 genes that make us a superhuman.
Yeah.
And so the thing that makes us the superorganism that we are is not actually our human genes. It's actually the fact that we carry around colonies of bugs that we've worked out how to work with and cooperate with. And the cool thing is we've also worked out how to get big diversity within that microbiome, how to accumulate as many different microbes as possible, because all of them produce different biological effects. And it's like phenomenal, eh, when you read it. And I mean, I can go mental with this stuff because you go back, like, then you're like going through, going, yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, epigenetics and genetic expression, it can control my body shape, my hormones, my moods. Yeah, you know, like you're getting into it all. But then you like kind of have this little moment where you realize that every cell of our body's got a mitochondria, which is our energy warehouse. That
Yeah.
is for all scientific purposes, it is a bacteria. So
Yeah.
inside our cells, we actually have a bacteria that have learned to be synergistic with us and And that's one of the most
they're
important
really
things.
helpful little buggers, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's not only that they live in our guts and on our mucous membrane, but they've incorporated themselves into our body. And along with that, the genetic code and that DNA, the information in their DNA, we can utilize that. And it's like blowing my mind, because the cool thing about it is I think the research started like this whole big microbiome project. They only invested a couple of $100 million into it just in the last couple of years. And because they had that new technology that they developed for the humans, the timing of that technology coming out just as they started this microbiome initiative, the massive amount of science that's come out, it has been possibly one of the greatest moments in scientific advancement in the last decade, of just understanding the living world that we live in and the holistic stuff. And I don't think it's a coincidence that at the back of it we get fucking pandemics and stuff, because with all this amazing technology, you can imagine these genetic codes and sequencing of microbes and how powerful they could be used for evil by bad people,
Yeah.
I like the company that invented the scanning for the human genomes, Illumnia.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Blackstone just bought Ancestry.com. Did you know
I,
that?
I saw that as that's wild.
Anyway.
Yeah, when you go right deep in that, because I love like crypto and investing and stuff as
Yep.
well. Like so much of that is just tied all together. It's friggin' wild.
I tell you what I'm really excited about with this decentralization of things. When they talk about decentralization of currency and banking, I'm more interested in the decentralization of science. Because can you imagine if science was done based on curiosity and scientific endeavors, as opposed to science being funded for financial gain? Like at the moment, science is, there's very few organizations just giving money to scientists for stuff just purely out of curiosity. And very few scientists can afford to do or live in this world without actually taking money to actually do science for people. And it always becomes a conflict of interest. And the problem is imagine when we have decentralized finance. Imagine if our crew could invest a little bit of crypto or something into a scientific project using the blockchain. They would be full transparency. So you wouldn't have that issues with conflict of interest. You know exactly who invested into the thing. And you'd have the full transparency of the money, follow the money. And then what you could actually do is you could actually have that IP generated, owned by the people that invested a little bit of their crypto. And they can go through and go, actually, regardless of the commercial opportunity, I would like this information to be shared. And not put in a filing cabinet waiting until I make a product and doing the market research to see if that's a viable product before I share my information. And I'm definitely not going to file anything that's bad news, because there's no bad news in science.
Exactly.
It's just learning.
You're just learning. You make something different if it doesn't work.
Unless you actually work for the news. And then it's all good news or bad news. Yeah, it's supposed to be no good news or bad news, just the news. Drop your propaganda and your opinions and tell us what was discovered, and we'll decide how it affects our life and if we want it or not,
Bloody hell.
So I get a bit carried up.
Well, no, I've mentioned it once before in one of our Ask Me Other things, and that is a platform called Zion. We could definitely look into that and definitely share it, with everyone in the X-Trials a bit more, but that is literally what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
It's like a social media, but then you can post whatever you want, like pretty much, and then literally from there, you can get, like, people will vote. But when they're voting, they'll give you likes and what? It's in the form of Satoshis, so the broken down form of Bitcoin. So
wow.
the more content it's not about marketing. It's like you're just putting out content and information. And if people like it and want to support it, they'll give you like a couple thumbs up, and it's a few Satoshis. So
that's
you're
excellent.
actually backing it. So I'll have a chat with you after this, and we'll set up
let's have a
profiles
look
on there, because we can actually put our podcast and things in there. So that might be a good place for us to actually put the stuff in there that you'd like to, and then people can support it that way.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And like I'm doing trials, doing a lot of little trials at the moment for product development. and they're things that cost a fair bit of money and stuff like that. So like I always have that, you have that moment, do you take on investment to make it big and do it fast but give it all away, or do you like kind of just try to do it yourself for curiosity? So I'm in the process of doing it myself, just slow and steady, just because I'm curious, and it's a challenging when you're talking to the labs and they're determined to find out what your commercial endpoint is before they even want to know if they want to do the studies, and you're like well, I don't know, it's an experiment, like
want to
depends
find
if the
out
experiment
cool
works. So I can build a business plan for you if you need me to, just to see if it's a good idea, but it's total bullshit. I don't know what it is, But
exactly.
I love that aspect of the science, just that exploration, especially with the microbiome, because it's also new. We have no idea. I told you, hey, when I went and did a tour at Microba, they were telling me that they're discovering new bugs every day. Like a lot of the new bugs coming out, they're just codes, just letters and numbers now, because they can't keep up naming the bloody things.
Well, I don't think we'll ever be able to keep up with it, not for a little while, because it's just exponential. Like, there's so many different types of bacteria and bugs, and, constantly adapting to an ever-changing environment. Like, how the hell do you expect to keep up with nature in that way? Like,
and they run on a totally different timeline to us. So they can evolve and mutate so quickly. A good thing there's on YouTube. Oh, little kid. Man, I'm terrible. If I see kids or pets, the adults think I'm weird. And my kids think I'm weird because they get mad at me for not acknowledging the adults. Because if I see that, I say good day to all the pets. And it's funny, like at the beach, we know parents, it's like, oh, there's Peanut's mum. It's like this dog Peanut we hang out with every day at the beach. Oh, there's Peanut's mum. Hi. But anyway, little kid. Anyway, no idea what we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about dogs and peanuts right now, and I'm not sure if there's allergies associated with that, but I reckon we'll get into some Ask Me Anything questions that we've had in the group this week. We've got a couple of decent ones in here that are pretty interesting. So we got one of the questions in here. So from the podcast, we were talking about all things testosterone in women, and Zena asked. She said a bit of an extreme opinion, but what if women born with high testosterone didn't need fixing? What if it was intended that way, so that back in the tribal days, these women were the warriors who protected their tribes from predators, hence the personality features, competitiveness, lower anxiety/fear. My question is, if women born with high testosterone just avoided increased stress levels, could they just live happily ever after?
Yeah, I love that question. Mainly because I don't actually see any, the body doesn't do bad things just for the shits and giggles. If you have a look at most of these things, we look at them as what we call genetic polymorphisms, not defects. So there are variations to the genes. And often we've acquired those as a positive trait through a survival technique. So exactly, the reason why we have so many women with a high androgen potential is basically because they survived. And they passed that trait on because they were warriors and actually more likely to breed and that sort of stuff in those eras because the warriors were not only respected and survived longer, but admired and all that sort of stuff as well for those particular traits. So, and that's why they breed more, and that's why that gene's passed on. We talked about the motherfucker gene, the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase one. What they found with that one, if you have the motherfucker gene, you're 10% stronger for your body weight. It actually enhances performance. It enhances athletic ability. It was actually used to preserve stress chemicals and hormones when you're scared and starving. So these things are inherited, but the problem comes in with the testosterone excess as if it's associated with some sort of an insulin resistance disorder. Now, insulin resistance is also a positive trait that was acquired to help people survive stress by holding sugar in your bloodstream during a stress response. So it's just a matter of managing it and keeping it within a healthy range so that you don't actually get into a phase of dis-ease, and that's where we're looking at is with these things. So everything is perfect and right. It's just all meant to be there. It's just a matter of how to manage it and adapt it. And
Yeah,
I just,
bloody hell.
yeah,
Well,
I
spot
think,
on, man.
mm,
And we've got another one in here. So we did like we were having a bit of a talk about some kombuchas and things like that.
yep,
Um, and yeah, one of the questions in there, they were actually curious about the testing, like what was coming up and
oh
those
yeah,
things. I'm not sure if we can fully discuss it or not. But I don't know.
don't know.
But yeah,
Well,
what
there's no brands. They didn't mention brands in the studies and that sort of stuff anyway. They were just commercial ones available. But they did actually find antibiotics, different antibiotic compounds, and they found a lot of hormonal compounds. And I think I actually saved the paper. I think I actually have the full text paper that does the full breakdown of all the weird stuff they discovered. So
yeah,
we could, you'll know how to share that, Ty, if I give that
yeah,
to you.
yeah, yeah. Swing that
But
through to
the
me. I'll
main
chuck
thing
you in
was,
the Facebook group.
yeah, like totally unknown chemicals, regulated substances and nutraceuticals that would normally be found in therapeutic goods, as well as actual medicine drugs like antibiotics.
Yeah,
And if you
wow.
consider the antibiotic bit was the weird bit, because if you consider that we could have antibiotics that would actually kill your commensal gut flora, the good ones, and
Yeah, yeah.
predispose to candida and clostridium, it's the last thing you want to do, because a lot of people believe they can take kombucha to prevent, candida overgrowth and dysbiosis,
Yeah,
but it may
or
actually
to
have the
create a
opposite
more
effect.
diverse.
Because if it's got antibiotics in it, then it's going to be potentially these things on the market could be contributing to antibiotic resistance. But also,
Yeah.
and they are, because there's also live bugs in there with them. So the live bugs that are in there with them have acquired a resistance to that particular antibiotic to be there. So that
Oh,
antibiotic will go in, wipe out the competition, and allow the things like candida and clostridium to thrive, as well as the extremophiles that are found in kombucha. I love that word, extremophiles.
yeah, bloody hell. What does extremophiles mean?
They like the extremes,
Yeah.
much like us, Ty, like crazy people. I'm an extremophile. Sometimes when my wife's angry, I put a towel on her back and say, "Now you're super angry." It's like extreme. It's like being into extreme sports, Or when she gets angry and she comes at me with a knife, I hold up bread, and her womanly instincts kick in, and she makes me a sandwich. So that's my extreme sports that I do, as I'm an extremophile. But when they look at bacteria, typically extremophiles will live in things that are like really hot or really cold or really acidic or really alkaline, where it would kill most of the other bugs. So slightly different. But
Well, I'm really curious on how you do like a prep for those extreme sports because that sounds pretty friggin' dangerous. Just
it
having a
takes a little bit. It actually doesn't take much at all. Typically, just me being me is enough to kind of get to the angry point. And then I just think I'm extremely funny when I just tip over to the other side. Funny thing is she doesn't find it as funny. Like, she goes all quiet, peaceful.
perfect. Well, well. Okay, let's roll into the next one because I think it's pretty common at the moment, and I know I've been pretty crook this week with the flu,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to talk about preventative measures. What can we do to support our immune system? And we
Yep.
do have the flu and those types of things. What is going to best support that? Is there some hurdles? Is there some
Yep.
practices? Obviously, just rest up, but there's definitely things we can do to help it out, eh?
Oh yeah, heaps, man. There's so many things. With the viruses and the weird shit that's going around in the world at the moment, and even potential shedding from vaccines and whatever, we got a lot of people talking about things like spike proteins. So you would have
Yeah,
heard about spike proteins. They
yeah,
talk about it with not only the viruses, but the vaccines and that as well. So there's a lot of research going into spike proteins, which has been really cool because it's shown how a lot of our old favorite herbs work. So
yeah,
things like licorice root, I'm really good at modifying spike proteins. And what spike proteins are, they're just sticky bits that stick on the outside of things like viruses. So then those sticky bits whack into an antenna on our cells and they stick to it, and that allows the virus to enter. So it's like an
yeah,
anchor or something like that. So we can have all these herbs that will kind of like make a coating across our mucosa and stop the virus's spike protein from anchoring. And that's
yeah.
why they then say drink lots of water whenever you feel sick. and it gets all that phlegm that catches the viruses moving into your stomach. That should be a big pit of acid, and then it just sterilizes it. That's why we're supposed to drink lots of water when we're sick, to just keep washing the bugs into our stomach, and keeping it out of our respiratory tract from our throat. It's so cool. Just sipping on water, it's one of the most powerful things. And actually putting a bit of salt in that water is excellent, because salt increases interleukin 18 or 22, I can't remember. Doesn't matter anyway. And they attract immune cells to the mucosa. That's why salty things will bring the immune cells to the area and increase your ability to kill off the infection. So salt gargles and even salt in the ocean when you get wounds. It's brilliant. So back to the spike protein, sorry. Licorice root, pine needle tea. So pine needle is one of the best. Pine needle contains a thing called suramin.
Yep.
Suramin is also in aniseed, fennel seed, thyme, I think, and those sort of things. I make this tea at home always. That's fennel seed, thyme, cloves, and aniseed. And anytime the kids get a cough or a stomach ache or anything, I just boil that up, or I make it as a cup of tea, add it to honey. And now I got the pine needles. I do that as well. Or licorice root if I got it. I very rarely have a licorice root at home though. But those other ones are always in the cupboard because we use them so much for cooking. They make the basis of so many spice rubs and marinades and things like that. So I reckon they're really cool, and they're things that we can use at home, and you can have them pretty regularly. Things like vitamin C, just make sure you're not deficient. Take an extra. Yeah, I think most people talk about thousands and thousands of milligrams of it, but I mean, we only need about 150 to 250 milligrams to saturate our immune cells during an infection. So you don't need to go too crazy. Zinc is probably the most important though, because zinc is the antennas are immune cells that we use to know that we've got an infection, are zinc dependent. So if you don't have zinc, and your immune cells doesn't know you've got an infection. So
wow.
Yeah, that's why I always go zinc. And for some reason, whenever I do zinc, I have to do selenium because they often work together in so many enzyme systems. And they're found together in nature all the time as well. So I tend to combine those, zinc, selenium, bit of vitamin C. Vitamin D is good for the symptoms. Like controlling inflammation. It works like a hormone. It works a bit like prednisone. The people who get really crook and you load up on prednisone. That's how vitamin D kind of is used in the naturopathic world. Yeah.
Well,
Vitamin E suppresses the immune system, just to remind people all the time.
So we're talking about that with the pregnancy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
So it slows down healing and suppresses the immune system. That's how it helps with scarring and symptoms of immune problems. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, cool, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, sick. Well, there's a few people on here live, so any of you guys who are on here and want to ask any questions while we're here, fire away, and then we'll get them answered right now. And if not, we're going to have, as always, an AMA Friday next week again. And we've got some more podcasts, and then obviously your book's coming out in the near future. Do you want to
near future? Oh, man, I'm so terrible, though, because I can't. It's like a can of worms. I want to just write a simple book. It's just so much. And our problem is we're learning new shit every day. Yeah. It's just like, oh, no, new discovery. Yeah. And I'm so paranoid by the time I publish it or write it or whatever we say the word is. And then they're going to have all this new stuff. So I have to do another one.
Well, I think that's the beauty of podcasting, because we can adapt and change, and up to date with all of the new information, and then just talk about it from there. But I'm pretty keen on that anyway to learn about.
And I want to do seminars.
Yeah.
I want to do seminars too. I got some people down Victoria definitely keen. I got some people in WA keen, in Sydney. Actually, I'm going to Mackay to do a seminar at the end of November with Ken Ware and Karen.
Yes,
Karen that does the voice of Siri.
So cool.
Yeah, how funny. He grew up in the same town as me. I didn't even know. But so that's the sort of stuff I want to get the books out, and we're going to do some seminars and workshops. I'm also meeting with a few of my bodybuilder friends today to discuss a new training technique that we've been working on with the guys that talks about growing extra muscle through new strategy we worked out with the fascia. So it's got to do like the spatial priming and then the energetic priming, and then you can go and actually build the muscle. It's like so cool. And a few of my lab rats have been trialing that. So once I work that out, we'll get that recorded for everyone as well, for anyone that's interested in that, and share it through the group. Maybe do some workshops traveling around.
I reckon that we'll definitely have a bunch of that rolling out in the near future for sure. Like all of the above, I'm so keen for the in-person stuff, like for the training, for the education stuff, because that's like where it's most potent, and that's where I learn my best is when I'm in person, writing down notes and asking specific questions right there on the day.
Yeah, and they're all different when you do them in person, because the crowd, drives the process of discovery with their questions and stuff. You can every live event can be so different because it just goes on totally different tangents, just very specific. So you get the core stuff, but whoever's there, it's like this place. So I'm at a Little Mermaid cafe at Mermaid Beach, and I spend most of my time here. And it's become a weird thing now that I come in most mornings and I'll have like a coffee and do my mind maps. But now I'm getting the locals turning up to sit down and ask me questions while I'm doing my mind maps. So it's becoming this like funky little I just like it. So if anyone's local and you ever come bored around Mermaid and you see me down here in the morning, sit down and ask me a question and do some mind mapping.
Oh, man. You're going to have to get an affiliate code for all of the coffees and the breakfasts that you'll sell there in a minute.
I'll be happy with a free one.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, well, once in a while, where's my fucking loyalty card or something? Actually, fuck that endorsement. I'm going to find a new cafe. Anyone out there that's got a cafe on the Gold Coast that'll give me free coffee to bring people in and answer questions, I'm your man.
Epic. Oh, well, sweet, man. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on today? Because, we might as well wrap it up if there's no questions dropping in from everyone that's on here live. And then, we'll just be rolling out all the new information in the group this coming week, hey?
Yeah, no, I'm cool. I've eaten my halloumi and I've had my coffee. I'm good to go.
Bloody oath. All right. Well, we'll give it. We'll give it another minute. See if any questions roll in. If not, we'll wrap it up there, guys.
Yep, I'm fired up. It's Friday.
What do you got on for the rest of today? I've got to go and get pizza stuff because it's.
You eat Pizza Friday every bloody week. You get. I'm wondering why I hang for pizza every Friday now. No, I'm going to go catch up with my bodybuilder mates today. Also going to go and check out some manufacturing facilities and also see where I've got one of my trials, go and get an update on one of my trials and see what we're discovering. Yeah, so it is kind of exciting. A little bit of driving involved, though, which I'm not a big fan of.
I know a really good podcast you can listen to on the way, though.
All right, very good. Which one? To give the plug?
Yeah, it's called the X Trials.
Oh, we just switched over.
There's three episodes now.
Is there really? I don't remember doing 3. That's cool, man.
We did an intro and then we've done 2 banger episodes. The tribute to the best podcast in the world and then testosterone and women. So we've got another one rolling out next week, but super excited for all of the above. Well, we don't have any extra questions rolling in here live, which is fine with me. So let's wrap it up and then, go and enjoy pizza and bodybuilding stuff.
I will, and I'll finish my bodybuilding stuff and I'll sneak off and have a beer probably because it's Friday.
Perfect.
They'll have their chicken and rice and broccoli and a protein shake. Chickily and protein. All right, man.
All right,
have a good weekend.